our journey designing an MVP with Starseed Studios for experiential brain-based training. I'm Marisa Stoltzfus, and the head of HR for Sierra Pacific Engineering and Products, headquartered in Long Beach, California. Today's session features amazing entrepreneurs. I'm going to introduce all three of them to you in just a second, and the connector that has brought this team of us together. So let me tell you about our panel. Alexandra Stone is the co-founder and CEO of Starseed Studios, where she explores the intersection of people, immersive technology, and culture to create experiences that inspire connection, learning, and transformation. With over a decade of experience across marketing strategy, enterprise transformation, AI adoption, and emerging technologies, Alexandra has built her career around helping people understand, adopt, and engage with new technology. At Starseed Studios, she creates human-centered experiences with technology that sparks insight, emotional connection, and measurable behavioral change. Rima Bagchandani, also a co-founder of Starseed Studios, is an award-winning creative director with over 2 decades of experience across global media, branded content, and emerging technology, including work with Netflix, Paramount, and Endemol Shine. Her work is rooted in one mission: expanding human creative freedom through ethical advanced technologies. At Starseed Studios, she uses technology and experiential design to create more human-centered, emotionally engaging experiences that help people learn, connect, and engage in new ways. And then there's Dr. Mayra. Dr. Mayra Austin is disrupting the training arena by introducing neuroscience research and techniques into her programs for middle management employees. After years of scaling businesses and developing leaders and a life-changing brain surgery, Dr. Mayra is now turning her lived experience into a neuroscience-backed training approach that transforms managers from the inside out. Welcome, ladies. Welcome. Quite an impressive team here today. So let's start with you, Dr. Mayra. How is it that we have all come together for this session?
Oh my goodness. Well, I couldn't be in a better room. How we came together was serendipitous. I actually first met Rima at a coffee break room at Westcliff University, and our energies just they found each other. I don't know how else to phrase it. It was very synergistic, and we just started to talk and get curious, which I think is what actually brings us all together is our curiosity and our passion for what we do. So that's how we met.
Wow, serendipity at its best, right?
That's right.
Great. So we're all together because we are all involved in the same project, right? So I know Dr. Mayra for 4 or 5 years now, and Dr. Mayra is working with Sierra Pacific Engineering and Products to train our managers, bringing her neuroscience-based training program to our teams, both our executive team and our middle management team, I might add, which is incredibly impressive. Our CEO, very, very technology oriented. His name is Barry Stein. There's this little, a little
Shout out to
promo there,
Barry.
little shout out. He's the reason why all three of us are really together. So Barry had challenged Dr. Mayra and said, hey, how do you bring some AI or technology into this program so that it's not just, stand up training? And, challenge accepted. How about it, Dr. Mayra?
That's right. That's right. I think there was something really wonderful about Barry's energy and just openness to learning and curiosity. He asked, what are you doing that is creating these kind of results, right? And so I was more than excited to share. This is something that I'm very energized around, but I began to share that I was working with Starseed Studios on creating a more immersive experience through augmented reality, virtual reality, and AI and exploring, right? We're very much in the design and testing phases. And of course, he lit up and he was like, invite us in. We'd like to be a part of that.
And so here we are. Alex, if I could turn my attention to you for just a moment. The title of this session took me off base just a little bit. MVP for me is most valuable player. but I know that's not what it means here. So could you talk to us a little bit about what we're doing as an MVP project?
Absolutely. Right now, we're working on the Safe Space Score MVP, and what MVP means is minimum viable product. And I think the intention there with that is that this is something that we're going to keep iterating on. Thanks to Marissa, for being an ambassador for Barry's buy-in and belief in doing something different and being bold, and Dr. Mayra calling us. We're able to come together and really like conduct an experiment. We've never neuroscience has never been integrated in an immersive experience before. And what Rima and I and Dr. Mayra are working on is kind of bringing that together, and we're going to be testing it out with all of you, with all of your senior managers and middle managers late June, I believe. So the idea of MVP is that this is something that we're going to get the data, we're going to test it out, we're going to get the data, and then it's going to be something that we iterate on and improve.
So bottom line, we're breaking ground here. We're doing something no one else is doing. This is so awesome. I get so excited about this stuff. Rima, so with the work that you've done and how you've set out to design an MVP for this experiential brain-based training, what were some of the assumptions you had to challenge yourself about how people actually learn?
That is such a powerful question. I think where we are today, right now, right, I feel like we're so distracted. We are hardly in the present. We are constantly looking at our notifications. We're constantly looking at our emails. The world of Slack and Instagram has kind of really drowned us in not being present. The biggest thing for us was to actually kind of uncover that gap, because technology can either really pull people further away from themselves, or it can bring people together, right? And if we are able to utilize that as our core system and build around an idea which could actually bring people together, was actually what we wanted to kind of try and bring out with this experience. And that was the goal that we set out on. Like, if the assumption that we go with is that technology usually brings people away, how do we create something that's going to actually bring them together, and it's going to create an experience which they're going to remember for life?
So what was the process you were able to use to reshape the way Starseed Studio actually approaches an immersion project?
Okay. I'm a very research heavy person. I like to dive into things when I first go into like, okay, let me get all of the research elements in and deep dive into the aspect of what really is the problem that we're trying to solve here, right? What is the target audience? What are the people that we want to create an impact to, right? What is the kind of communication we want to create that's going to basically be taken in a form that they're going to remember for the rest of their life, right? How can we create this experience to answer all of those things? So being able to kind of go deep into research, work alongside Craig and Dr. Mayra, using all of the data that Dr. Mayra has kind of, put together in the past, really kind of helped us in, I would say, developing this together. I don't think that it was any one individual that made this. I think the fact that we all cohesively came together, first at a human level, like we just connected, like, Dr. Mayra said, over coffee. And we started talking about the things that she does and the kind of problems that she would want to solve, in the trainings that she's doing. And I think being innovative and kind of building something with the team together really kind of changed and transformed what this project really means for us.
This is amazing. Immersion projects, which I've been involved with in the past with previous employers, were really about just like isolating people and getting them focused and bringing in learning activities in that process. I think, there's a reason why it's really important in this day and age, especially for our middle management team of people. From an HR perspective, and Dr. Mayra, I'll ask you to expand on this. From an HR perspective, we have individual contributors who are promoted into management positions. They don't necessarily have the people skills or the administrative skills that are necessary. They may lack empathy when it comes to how to manage the people problems that come up. And communication can be strained in all of this. How do you see an immersion into an experiential training impacting former approaches?
Yeah, I think I think it's critical and I think it's essential because I think to Rima's point, we're now in environments where we're overly stimulated, right? We have more flow of information than we've ever had. What we have less of is focus. What we have less of is actual knowledge. What we have less of is taking knowledge and turning it into something that we feel, we see, we hear. And I think that that's why the immersive component of what we're doing is so important to me because we need now we need to pull people away in order for them to have a realization. And the realization in training is so important for me. It's the most important part because without it you don't have buy-in, you have nodding. And people will nod all day and say that they understood the definition of something, and still can't bring it to life. And so for me, being that I have respect for the management experience separate from the leadership component or capacity. And I think that is really where this comes from, that humanity is understanding most managers are burnt out.
Yeah.
Most managers are undertrained. Research shows, 80% of managers out there have never received management specific training, much less a training that actually has a clear return on investment or an actionable plan for them that speaks to where they're at, where they're standing, where they're sitting. And so I think that, when we start to care about the human experience, we start to, I think, really do something meaningful. There's a lot of training out there with phenomenal facilitators that definitely don't get their due credit. I think part of what we've done at Management Cues is quantify the results so that doesn't happen. And now partnering with Starseed, it's using technology in a way that's human-centered because I see it going in the opposite direction so often and so hard. And doing something that brings us back to understanding how to adapt in an evolving environment. And that's going to require us to feel through it because that's the one thing that technology cannot do.
Yeah. That emotion, the empathy, the connection, the human connection that we need to make in order to keep things moving in the right direction. Thank you, Dr. Mayra. Alex, if I could turn my attention to you for just a moment. Like you're leading up Starseed. You have all kinds of experiences as well. And it's my understanding that you all had a design thinking and ideation session. And I heard Rima mention Craig. By the way, that's Craig Provost. He's phenomenal. And that you were intentionally grounded, that you intentionally grounded the space in psychological safety, right? Can you tell me more about why psychological safety and how that that whole process came about from your vantage point?
Absolutely. First and foremost, like Craig is just something like a wizard.
Yeah,
When it comes
he's amazing.
his facilitation skills and when we talk about experiences, right? Craig is an experience. When you have a session with Craig, like he is so disarming and he's immersive in his own way. And I think he's the perfect thought partner for a lot of the work that, we've been so lucky to get to do together. One of the most things I remember most is he cut out this shield made of foam or something like that. And it felt so silly. It felt really childish, but there was something about being able to hold this shield. And I think we were all sharing experiences about psychological safety, positive and negative, that we've experienced through time. And there was something that was just so disarming about that. And it really set the context of what do we really need to do to create a psychologically safe environment? And how do we really think of who our audience is, right? It's a delicate kind of category, senior managers and middle managers, right? They're having a lot of pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to be perfect, right? They have, when we bring new ways of being and working, oftentimes it can feel threatening, or they oftentimes comparing themselves to one another. So we started brainstorming, the four of us at that time, and thinking like, how do we disarm this group? How do we create a shared experience where they're not competing with one another, right? But they're going through this collective experience together and able to answer questions authentically. And how do we create a space that people are also able to answer vulnerably, right? And I think that's where Dr. Mayra, or the work that Barry, starting with Barry, right, the CEO of the company, is saying, hey, you all, like, let's invest in this, like, spend the time, let's do this. That's like the first layer of that. And then I think that's where Dr. Mayra's superpower comes in, where she's just such an amazing and incredible and disarming facilitator, and just knows how to work a crowd of people. So by the time that they get to our experience, right, they're already here in a lot more open kind of mindset, right? And then they're able to go through the experience with the most sort of authentic and truthful version of themselves, right? And I think that's kind of how we went through this whole like brainstorming process with Craig, but it really started with him disarming us, right? And so it was kind of meta in that way, and just absolutely delightful.
And so, you've mentioned Barry, and of course, I'm very fortunate to have senior leadership buy-in and participation in this whole training experience that we're having. What have you seen? What have you learned about other companies and how engaged we can help middle management get when their senior leaders or the people that they report to aren't on the same page?
Driving change and driving transformation is extremely difficult when senior leaders are not aligned with that vision and mission. When you're asking people to do something different or take risks, we're talking about, when we talk about AI adoption, this is some of the work that I'm doing right now, right? Like, we're asking people to experiment with new technology, and a byproduct of that might be failure, right? If senior managers are kind of not beating the same drum, right, and not having the same narrative around those things, no one wants to be the person who experimented and failed, or tried something new and then got punished for it. So that's why it becomes extremely critical. I think Mayra, you said it, it's critical and essential that senior managers are on board with whatever narrative an organization is pushing forward. And it's really about their empowerment and their buy-in that's going to help empower those middle managers to try new things. And I think sometimes some companies underestimate the power in that, right? They'll just put a mandate. It cannot be a mandate. It has to be integrated. It has to be integrated within all the different systems, especially because many organizations work in silos. So it cannot be happening one way in HR and then another way in sales, for example, right? We want to have that same message, or same type of empowerment. Down.
And that's emotional, right? It all comes from an emotional place, right? While we're trying to, be very systematic about managing change, but it's really about getting people connected in a way that brings an emotional change to an organization. Anyway, all right, let me move on, because I'm going to get all fired up on this for sure. Dr. Mayra, why was it so critical for Starseed Studio to partner with Management Cues at this stage of building? What did you see in this collaboration that made it more than just a project?
I think I saw the future. It's interesting because we all have very different skills. We all have very different experience. But I think that's the magic of diversity at play, right? So it was interesting because I started to teach AI workshops. I started to take a look at specifically the management and leadership experience with AI implementation and integration. And that's kind of just my ops passion at play. I just love operations and operations leadership, but what I know has made me effective in those spaces is the focus on the experience, right? And at the end of the day, it was that kind of thinking that led to the design methodology behind how we train at management cues. So when I met Rima and I started to talk to her about, first of all, she has an amazing background, right? Netflix, I mean, we talked about Paramount. So, and I, for experience, narratives, creativity, that is all human centered, right? So for me, anytime I hear anybody speak and I can connect it to human centeredness, I personally see an opportunity, in a lot of different ways. But the other thing was the up and coming wave of technology, right? And so I share this with my students often and we laugh, but I like to share the light and the dark side of technology, right? Because the dark side often hits ops and its people and causes all kinds of cost and risk and delay. And so I can't help but see the world in that lens, right? And so for me, I thought to myself, there's a lot that we're going to have to mitigate with AI, in the workforce in terms of experience. There's a lot of misconception, right? There's an absence of measurement around the degree of automation bias that's taking place, which for those who don't know what that is, it's our codependency, right? Our trust, our blind trust on the AI and what it brings and the output. We're seeing rash decision making, right? Laying off waves of people and then calling them back. And then, how they're going to perform once you've let them go for technology and then brought them back. In order to maximize them, the experience is going to matter. And so there's all these things that I'm seeing as I'm teaching undergrads, graduates, and doing these kind of independent types of things around AI. I'm seeing the human-centered component be such a strategic, critical piece, but I'm seeing that there's a lot of gray and that very few people understand it. And so that's the connecting point. So I thought to myself, how can we use what's happening with something like psychological safety, which for the audience, our first augmented reality immersive experience that we're working on with Starseed is going to focus on psychological safety.
Right.
And the reason we're doing it with that particular topic is because it's so human-centered and because we have research out there that has proven time and time again what it does for us, right? So Rima did a phenomenal job of collaborating with me on Amy Edmondson's research, right? Looking at the work she did even in her book, her book of 2018, The Fearless Organization, right? She synthesized a lot of what we are now trying to create as an experience. So if Amy hears this, we're a huge fan. But and then she took it even further and took a look at other types of training or immersive experiences or close to immersive experiences out there, like that of Google's Project Aristotle, right? And why that's so significant in this minimum viable product, right? Our beta test, is because when you look at stuff like that, you start to understand not just that psychological safety is a need to maximize an environment, especially if we're talking about business environments where it comes down to profits, but you can't discount the experience, right? Because otherwise you're going to fail. So when we look at projects like that of Google, what they ended up culminating on was that the manager had a very different role to play. To not go into it and get super nerdy about it. But at the end of the day, that was the culmination that the manager plays a very different role. They're exposed to different variables.
Yeah.
They have different pressures.
And clearly you saw this long already, which is, the genesis of management cues.
Yes.
Now, and we've been working together quite some time now. And I've been with Sierra Pacific about a year and a half. So tell me what made Sierra Pacific Engineering and Products such a good client for this experiment, given the other clients that you have?
Yeah, there's so many reasons. Starting with what Alex said, actually, right? The beginning, the buy-in was the perfect fit. Barry's energy, excitement, and curiosity as the CEO made it the territory that it needed to be. But then looking at the parameters of what makes an ideal kind of beta client to test this stuff on, you're in an industry that is complex, is dynamic, right? As soon as you walk into Sierra Pacific, you see all of their patents, right? So we're talking about people who are dedicated to engineering, to solving problems, to creating utility with the hardware that they create. So for me, bringing light to environments that it may not seem as sexy, right? Is an important thing, because I think that that's where the infrastructure of our economy is actually, is how I feel about it. So
Awesome.
they were an excellent group. And then the last thing that to me made it really exciting, I get to test it on two audiences. We get to test it on middle managers, which have a very different experience in the workplace, compared to executive level leaders who have to focus on agility, strategic initiatives, and leading, right? A nuance towards leadership. So those were the things that for me made them just a very exciting group to work with. And obviously you, Marisa, as well.
Well, thank you. I hadn't thought about it that way. So I appreciate that insight. So let me move on. Rima, I have a somewhat tougher question for you. If we didn't have this type of training, how does this technology, from your perspective, how does this technology actually align, or the immersive approach align with the neuroscience piece of Dr. Mayra's work?
That is actually a really good question. So just to go a little bit in, who I am and my background, I build a lot of formats. So what formats really are, you put together certain elements from certain places and you kind of bridge it together, right? That's what I've done in my life. Like I've built a lot of formats and a lot of shows and a lot of content that kind of like bridges different things. When I met Dr. Mayra, we didn't have a brief. We didn't have, we didn't know we were going to work together. We didn't know anything, right?
No, you were just having a cup of coffee, right?
Exactly. We just knew that we had the intention to do something powerful, to do something that's going to be disruptive. It's going to be brave. It's going to be bold. And hopefully, people experience it in the same way. So we just decided to go for it. The biggest thing, honestly, I mean, I obviously have kind of, dived into neuroscience, but the last couple of months that I have kind of gotten into the psychology and like reading so much about it has really kind of shaped my brain in a very different way. In fact, I feel like, Dr. Mayra and I were just jamming about in general neuroplasticity and, how we should encourage people to like build, new things and, encourage those things. I feel in today's time, we are anything that we want to be. Like you can really be anyone. You can be superhuman. We are in that space and day and age. It's how you utilize this technology to amplify your thought process and your brain. And I think it's the most powerful time to be alive, and it's the most powerful time to do these things. And we want to go into this saying that it is definitely an experiment, because the people that are going to be involved in actually testing this with us are going to be able to give us feedback on what emotion they are feeling. And I think that is the secret sauce. It's being open to that experience. It's being open to the neuroscience behind it. And I don't know, we want to, at some point, we want to definitely attach some ENGs into their brains to see what's going on too. But, that'll be stage 2. But the vision is to try and capture that emotion, to really understand what people go through when they are in an immersive environment and an immersive experience, right? How are they adapting to learning in a different way? And I think that is where the joy is. And I'm beyond grateful that, with Dr. Mayra's, research and all of the things that she's developed, we were able to adapt that into something that we're creating together. So it just feels incredibly, it's just amazing.
That's awesome. You mentioned neuroplasticity. Did I say that correctly? Dr.
Yes.
Mayra, can you define that for us, please?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to define it in a very non-scientific way, right? I'm
Okay.
not going to go the neuroscience route, but for workforce purposes, it's the newness, it's the creating of new ideas, it's how open we are in an environment, right? That enhances neuroplasticity. So, the reason I say it this way is because you might be viewing this and thinking, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, as managers and leaders, we create an impact in the environment, whether we choose to do it intentionally or not. We have an impact regardless. And so sometimes, as you've learned in our first session, Marisa, sometimes we're contributing to that neuroplasticity, and sometimes we're deducting from it, right? And so it's an interesting thing to understand, because sometimes we say to people, we need to be more better at problem solving. We need to be better innovators, yet we're deducting from the neuroplasticity daily, on the minute by the minute.
Yeah.
So we're actually not creating an environment for what we actually think is our end objective. And so that's my management cues tactics definition of neuroplasticity.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
but if I could just give quick credit to Neuron, and just share in the audience that all of this was based on the actual neuroscience research study that was done on our program by a neuroengineer, Suleiman Bantaleb, who actually measured with EEG brainwaves the impacts that our program had on our clients. And this is where we're at now, from there to here.
So multiple partnerships to get to this point, correct?
Yeah, and again, I always lean back on the diversity of thought and the power of the diversity of experiences. Because I think that if you're going to create something that's human-centered, that is immersive, that creates an experience for humans, it has to be just as dynamic as we are.
Awesome. Alex, you mentioned earlier, and I'm hearing this theme throughout our conversations around the emotional connection, right? How do we build relationships intentionally? How do we create a work environment where people bring their best every day? How do we ensure that when people walk out of training, they're not just saying, hey, I learned one thing, but they're saying, I know how to apply what I've learned because I was immersed in this learning event, right? You talked about authenticity and being truly authentic and having a personal connection. How do those elements those elements of authenticity and personal connection influence the creative direction and user experience that you're building?
That's a great question. I like having to take a second and digest that for a minute. But I think ultimately we look at it as like, where is the way that I like to look at it? And I know me and Rima like to look at it is that where is someone before they go through that experience? And where do we want them to be after? I think, and like, how do we facilitate that sort of transformation?
Gap analysis. We get right back to a gap analysis.
Reverse engineer. Reverse engineer.
Well, it's a simple thing, but I think a lot of people overlook it because it is so simple.
Yep.
Right? It's like, where are people entering in the beginning? Maybe they're nervous, they're scared, they're anxious, they don't care. That's also an emotion. And then
Yep.
where do we want them to feel after? Like even having a feeling of like, that was fun. Like, let's not underplay the value of integrating fun or play or a little bit of gamification into something. Like that makes it more memorable, right?
Yeah.
That was fun. That was different. All of these things, Dr. Mayra, you're talking about neuroplasticity. Like those are all things that are like activating people's brains. And then if we go on the deeper end of that spectrum is like, hey, I learned something new about the people that I work with that I had not known before. Or I learned something new about myself. And all of that's sort of that's like the transformation journey they're experiencing there. And then I think Marisa, the other part of it is like, how do we then, partner with someone like yourself and think like, how do we keep iterating? How do we build on that momentum, right? How do we not just leave that moment and forget about it, but still create some type of activations or experiences or communication that reiterate or remind people about what they just went through, right? Because it's I think all of these shared experiences compound on each other, and that's how there's no like magic pill solution. You're not going to ever do
Right.
one thing and tomorrow everything is going to be perfect, right? But it is about this partnership amongst, stakeholders or these collaborators, people like us, right, who are creating those experiences, and leadership, and then continuing to kind of drip down that messaging or interact and engage with
Mm.
our audiences, and our employees, whomever that audience might be, right?
So following the post, thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm so inspired. But following you all on LinkedIn, Dr. Mayra's post in particular regarding this entire experience, right? You're creating a product that creates an experience, but you in fact went through an experience in creating what you've created, right? I know that sounds a little convoluted, but you get where I'm going with this. So from each of you, what did you learn about yourself as part of this immersion creation that you went through? We'll start with Rima.
Oh my God, I have a very big learning. I actually dived into coding, something that I have never done before. I started to learn Python. I mean, I think it was well timed. I wouldn't say that it was just for this particular thing, but it was just well timed. Um, I believe in being able to show what we can do. And I've always told Alexis, I'm like, if we can show what we can do is, it just gives you a better runway to, to get the buy-in, right? So for me, it was about a very big journey in terms of literally getting deep into it and learning how to code. And I think that it's not really about just, learning a language model. It's really about learning how to communicate with machines and
Mm.
taking that learning, because we take it very lightly. We're like, how do we like talk to an AI? We just throw in some stuff into chat or Claude and we take it for granted. But if you really learn the science behind how to actually prompt and how to actually use your research to create the skills that you can, capitalize on, and how you can build that to create a super brain for yourself and use that in the projects that you do, there's nothing that can stop you. And we
Wow.
are in that day and age. And this whole, like all of this last couple of months, and building star seeds and all of these things, for me kind of just have has this these new neurons that are fired in my brain, which I didn't know existed.
Awesome.
So absolutely a beautiful
Awesome.
high learning curve.
So Rima learned a new language. Alex, what did you learn in this experience in creating this learning immersion for management cues?
I think it's really been about being intentional with everything that we do, no matter like how small or large the detail, but
Mm.
especially when you're thinking about AR, right?
Mm.
Oh, we can do an AR experience and it can easily become a gimmick. It can just feel like, oh, we're just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? But I think where we really differentiate ourselves is that we are using it as a way to enhance something that's already happened, right? Like there should be a value, there should be a takeaway from it. And I think what
Yeah.
we've been really working on, and partnering on is like, how do we make all of that intentional and really audience centric? Like who are we speaking to, and like what are we trying how are we trying to impact them? And
Mm.
then if we think about that, then how are we designing an experience around that? And I think that has just been like the core learning, and that's why I'm really excited for this MVP, because we've put a lot of thought into this, and I'm hoping that it has that impact on everybody else. And if and we can get that feedback loop going and continue to iterate that, so we can really build something special here. I have a feeling with Dr. Mayra, this will be the first of many. And once I think we have also even the opportunity to understand like what's the neuroscience behind this gamification, behind these, like what happens when we have fun and we learn and we're doing these training, what is that doing to our brain when we're having this pattern interruption? So I think that's been the key takeaway for me.
Yeah. So for me, it sounds like there's a shift in mindset that you're creating with the experience that people will have as a result of your work. So I'm so excited to go through this course. Dr. Mayra, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it so beautifully, Marisa, when you said you're experiencing as you're creating experiences. When we're doing like the ideation and design thinking with Craig, he had us walk through experiences that were honest, where we didn't feel psychologically safe. And so one of the things that I've learned is that I still have very attract neural pathways around bad experiences that happened to me, and we shared that, right? And we each had very terrible things to share. So these things do happen, and I think what I'm learning is it's not just a gut feeling. It's something that's calling us to create something that helps us not have that repeat itself in the workforce, right? We can do better, we can be better. That's always been a great motivator in my mind, quoted by the great Maya Angelou, better, do better, right? And I think to Rima's point, we have so many tools, we have so many ways. Why aren't we doing better?
Last word, what one word culminates this experience that you all have had? Rima, one word.
Intentional.
Okay. Alex?
Oh, limitless.
Ah, nice.
Dr. Mayra?
Meaningful.
Meaningful. Excellent. So in the coming months, we are at Sierra Pacific Engineering and Products. We will continue our training with Dr. Mayra, both at the executive level and at the middle management level. We are looking forward to bringing Rima and Alex and Craig Provost into our lives in the month of June, where we will be doing our session on psychological safety with the immersion approach. So we're very excited about that. So what does that mean? That means, well, you'll probably be hearing from us again so that we can share with you what we've learned and what that experience how that experience had an impact to the teams that went through it, both at the executive and middle management level. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. You're amazing. You're doing amazing things in the world, and I'm just so blessed to be part of all of this and look forward to working with you in the future. So on that note,
Bye.
we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Maria.